Good morning, everyone. This is another on-demand video, and it's a little bit complex, but I think we're going to be able to do it, okay? This is Castle Medical Center. I don't know if you can see that or not, in Oahu on the windward side of Hawaii. And we're going to be ending up there in a bit, but first we will start with maybe perhaps where the story begins. Here we are on the north shore of Hawaii. I used to house sit for famous Amos the cookie guy, and this was his Mazda truck with watermelons and palm trees on it, sort of a famous truck. I don't know if you can see it. That's kind of you are love, or you are loved or something. And this was a juice bar that had just opened, a little smoothie hut, really way out in the middle of nowhere. I know people kind of think of Oahu as touristy, but this part of Oahu was not. This was where there were just horses, cows. It was sort of like Wisconsin on the ocean with palm trees in this part. And I recall driving by this area quite often and finding out that this was actually an old insane asylum, an abandoned insane asylum. So if anyone's looking for a location scout, looking for a strange place to film, there it is. And here's the North Shore, once again. Great surfing kind of spot. And this is famous Amos's place. There's a friend that was visiting. It was kind of this grand, wonderful, sort of estate feeling place. So right now I'm just kind of familiarizing you with this because we're going to go into some kind of strange tales here, and so we're just getting oriented. This is the on the way to the North Shore, and this is sort of also on the way to where I taught school there for a little bit. I taught school on the in Oahu. Here's a little poi factory that I would go by, and here's just a beautiful, very beautiful places. And so sometimes I would just have to stop and get out of the car and take pictures of these gorgeous spots. And this is, you know, an old wall made of lava rock, and people still wrap tea leaves around rocks and make prayers. But there was one day I was coming back from the school, and I'm just going to kind of go through these pictures as I'm talking. There was one day I was coming back, and sometimes I would take, usually I would take my car, but there was a really nice librarian who taught out there too. And my job was only part-time, and hers was full-time. But sometimes I would go out with her, but it meant taking the bus home, and the bus was really slow. Super slow bus. They're knocking these puppies down and putting up these stucco things that, you know, go from stem to stern on the property. So I'm hoping some of these are still about, these kind of little hidden spots, kind of treasured cabins. This is sort of an old abandoned sugar town. This was out further than where I worked. So one day I went in with her and I took this treacherous bus home. It was literally like hours because the school was way out in the country. It was the middle of the day, and then there was a stop in Kaneohe, a charmless military town. I lived in Kailua and Lanikai. So one day I took the bus home, and I was at this long stop in Kaneohe, and it was in front of a Baskin Robbins and I believe a Zips Chili or something of that nature. And it was super hot out. Oh, this is a cool place. They only sold, if I remember correctly, surfboards and eggs. Surfboards and eggs. So I went into the Baskin Robbins, and I'd been at that stop a million times and never had, but I think that day it was just really sweltering out. I'd sort of had it, and it was like, okay. So I went into the Baskin Robbins, and nobody else was in there. It was this, kind of odd time of the afternoon when I got out of the school, and so and you could almost feel that nobody had been in there for a while. There was this kind of very bored looking person behind the counter, and he just seemed kind of, happy someone was there and was wanting to, that's Wally's place. He was really wanting to talk story, and he just, he was asking, about my clothes, about this, about that. He was kind of aloof. He was really sort of strange. Later on, when the election was going on, my father said, well, you know who Obama is, don't you? And I was really paying so little attention. I actually didn't even know Obama was from there, Hawaii, and all I knew was I thought he was pro-nuke, and I really didn't want to know anything more about him. I thought, no. But my dad said, no, you know who he is, you remember. And then my dad died a couple of days later. It was, he had a heart attack. He was visiting. He died when he was up at my aunt's. And here I was suddenly remembering, oh my goodness, I bought an ice cream from this guy. And it was not when he was in high school. It was not during that time. But when when I was in there getting the ice cream, in fact, and he was talking story, kind of keeping me there, which is common in Hawaii. He, I was looking out the window, the bus was nowhere to be seen, and he said, he was like, asked me about my batik dress, and then, I just, he was just talking, and I said that I was, teaching. I think he said, do you work around here? And he said, oh, that's really good. You probably think I'm a soda jerk, but I went to Columbia, New York and everything, and I'm just back visiting, and I'm filling in for a friend. And it was odd to me just that he kind of went through that, because I wasn't like judging him like, oh, the ice cream guy, but he was really adamant that I would know that. And then I got excited when he said he'd gone to Columbia, because, I was living in New York for a long time, and I kind of warmed up and said, wow, that's great. And, it was funny because he never mentioned like a special place in New York, like, oh, isn't that part of Central Park great with Alice in Wonderland? Or have you gone to Angelica's down in the Village? Or, wow, what about CBGB's? Or, there's this cool little bistro no one knows about, up in Spanish Harlem, or just, there was nothing. It was weird. It was blank. And I remember it really disturbed me, because every single other person I meet, even if they're not, native New Yorkers, but everyone that has spent time there, always just immediately goes into a story of, I love Greenwich Village, or, something. And it was just weird how he just kind of, that there was this dryness or abstractness to him. Well, my ice cream was done, and I don't know if I got the right change, but I did. I left the store, and the bus stop was right in front of it. And as I was standing and waiting for the bus, lo and behold, he came down to the bus stop to keep talking. He was like, there's no customers today, and if anyone comes, I'll see them. And that's the only time in my life that anyone has ever left a store to keep talking. And it also felt weird because, like I said, there was something really aloof and dry about him. And I was really grateful when another person showed up at the bus stop, and it was a man selling things. He was selling these, they call them like Kama Aina books. I even bought one from him because my dad really likes them. Or liked them, I should say. And the Kama Aina books were, it's where I think I paid $16 for it, and when you buy it, it's a really thick book, and it's got really great, it's like heavy cardboard paper, and it's got really good discounts for places in Waikiki, because a lot of times people from the windward side don't go to Waikiki. So there's lots of, 2 for the price of 1 things, just cool stuff. And because my father was a minister there and did weddings, he was always over on that side. So he was someone who would actually use his Kama Aina book. So I remember I got one for him, and Obama was still there. I didn't know his name then, and maybe it's Barry, I don't know. And the guy selling the books, and so there was like this kind of chat going on between the three of us. And at some point Obama blurted out, I want to be president someday. And it was so weird. It sounded like a little kid, like, I want to be a fireman and then go to the moon, I just thought that's so weird. Like, no one who would, in their right mind, who was actually going to be president, I didn't think they would actually say it. I don't know why. Maybe that's what you should do, is go around saying that. I always thought, it's people that have done a lot of other things, and then they just kind of keep getting qualified and become that. But he was saying that, I want to be president. And I just remember it sounded to me just like the little kids I was teaching. So there it goes for me, right? But getting back to Castle Medical Center, at one point, Wally Amos, famous Amos, who I'd been house sitting for, had a friend who came down to kind of visit one time when Wally was giving a speech. And I had actually just flown in from New York, and it was funny because this person was from New York originally, and so they kind of threw the two of us together, and it was a very strange kind of time. It was the late 80s, super early 90s. It was right when the World Trade Center was first bombed. And this person's name was Bob, and he was with like Department of Defense, this kind of thing. And so we ended up becoming good friends because we both loved New York. He was very different than Obama. He had a million different New York stories of, he knew people who looked like Carmen Miranda and people who he called the Botticelli sisters and all these, crazy places. He'd seen Peter, Paul, and Mary in the Village or whatever. And in fact, we even saw John Prine in Honolulu. So this was this very happening person. And one day we were like in Honolulu, and we walked by the YMCA, and he said, the YMCA, that's all connected with World Vision and Mark Chapman and everything. And of course, I think everyone knows that Chapman had been living in Hawaii and had been part of World Vision, if anyone's done research on that. And the interesting connection, of course, is that John Hinkley's father was really high up in World Vision and a good friend of George Bush Sr. And there, when you see both of these assassins, as you can see, I had just done something with Hinkley in it, and Chapman had been mentioned as well by this person, Bob, because of the hypnosis. And I, when you look at the detective's first reports, about Mark Chapman, before sort of the bigger guns got to him, they all say, the guy looked hypnotized. And Hinkley as well. And that was what I did hear from the person who was there in the other YouTube about Angelina Jolie, MK Ultra Slave YouTube, Ronald Reagan assassination attempt. So these people were obviously hypnotized, and they were, according to Bob, so now I'm getting out onto a bit of a limb here, but over the years I've done research, and it's weird how things bear fruit, said that there was a facility where these people were being hypnotized, and that it was part of World Vision. And Sirhan Sirhan is also another hypnotized person that people really feel had gone through World Vision as well, because World Vision tends to have first dibs, sometimes only dibs on disaster, war-torn areas, things like that. And Sirhan Sirhan was a Palestinian refugee. So the question then was, where is this facility located? And the riddle was, you hide a facility within a facility. And so from all that I've been able to gather over the years, because this was told to me some time ago, if you're going to hide a facility within a facility, and I've known people who worked at Castle Medical Center, and it was really kind of creepy, had some creepy aspects to it, according to them. And so this is where I personally have pinpointed where this may have happened. I saw that Mark Chapman was at Castle Medical Center, and I believe I saw that Hinkley was as well. So this is a place where those two puppies converge at the psych ward at Castle Medical, which would be a great cover for that. So, it's been amazing now. All of this had happened before the internet, like I said, like super early 90s, late 80s. Now, just before I did this, I typed in, World Vision, Hinkley, and Chapman, and look, here we've got it, the whole MK Ultra, and there were other articles as well. So this is good for people to be able to have, another little piece of the puzzle pie. And also, strangely, this Castle Cook Medical Center, it dawned on me one day, oh my goodness, it's like right just a few miles away from where Obama was, serving me up ice cream. And I know people have questions about, the scars on Obama's head. There's some really good YouTubes about that to go check out. So, that could also be, we could ostensibly, and I'm going way out on a limb, this is pure speculation, but Obama could have been part of that hypno training, for all we know. I think if you don't speculate, you don't get anywhere. Like William Burroughs used to do. He used to cut up the newspaper. You get your facts, and then you start putting them in the blender, and then you see what happens. So maybe we're going somewhere with this. I thought it might be worth sharing in case anyone out there is interested in this particular subject. And someone said, make this one. So here you are, and here you go. And have a great day, everyone. Aloha.